Chelsea Manning did her first interview since getting out of prison. It was with Good Morning America. Let's watch, and then we'll discuss.
Become a beacon for anti-secrecy rights and transgender rights, a hero to many. But critics say she betrayed her country plain and simple. She would argue, in the fog of war, it's much more complicated than that. So many people call you a traitor. Many call you a hero.
Right.
Who is Chelsea Manning?
So, I'm just me. It's as simple as that.
Yet the story she's sharing this morning for the first time is far more complex. The world first heard about her as Bradley Manning in 2010, when the Army intelligence analyst was charged with leaking the largest trove of government secrets in U.S. history.
Do you feel as though you owe the American public an apology?
I've accepted responsibility. No one told me to do this. Nobody directed me to do this. This is me. It's on me.
It was images like this that Manning says compelled her to go to WikiLeaks. American soldiers carrying out an aerial attack on what ended up being unarmed civilians, including children. Among the dead, 2 Reuters journalists.
You're getting all this information, and it's just death, destruction, mayhem, and eventually you just stop. I stopped seeing just statistics and information, and I started seeing people. Counterinsurgency warfare is not a simple thing. It's not as simple as like good guys versus bad guys. It is a mess.
She leaked over 700,000 documents in total, saying she wanted to spark public debate.
So you didn't think any of it was going to threaten national security?
No.
There are those who say you may have been motivated to get the information into the public sphere, but you might have also given it to our enemies.
Right, but I have a responsibility to the public. It's not just about, we all have a responsibility.
Manning was acquitted of the most serious charge of aiding the enemy, but pled guilty to others and was sentenced to the longest prison term for any American leaker, 35 years. Within days, she made another life-changing decision.
What made you decide to come out as trans after being sentenced?
I had to be who I am.
But the military denied her request for hormones. Fighting for her right to transition, so daunting, she says, she tried to commit suicide twice, which led to time in solitary confinement.
And why was it so important to you to fight for hormone treatments while you were behind bars?
It's literally what keeps me alive. It keeps me from feeling like I'm in the wrong body. Like I get these horrible I used to get these horrible feelings like I just want to rip my body apart.
The Army ultimately granted her request, and then 5 months ago, after 7 years in prison, a gift from a parting president, clemency.
I feel very comfortable that justice has been served.
You haven't spoken to President Obama. What would you say to him if you could?
Thank you. Give it a chance. That's all I wanted.
You wanted a chance.
That's all I asked for was a chance. That's it. And this is my chance.
Even though President Obama commuted Manning's sentence, it was not a pardon, and yet the 7 years she served was already longer than any other leaker in U.S. history. But her fight is not over. She is appealing her case with lawyers from the ACLU and support from Amnesty International, who object to her months in solitary confinement, saying she has more than paid.
Yeah, and that's the point that President Obama made as well. You did a lot of interviews for this story. The intelligence community is still pretty upset.
Absolutely. And the portrait that emerges is a very complex character. She is a millennial who likes fashion. She has hundreds of thousands of fans on social media, but she has those detractors in the intelligence community who say the bottom line is, even if she was trying to expose wrongdoing, she should have gone up the chain of command, because there's no way of knowing the long-term impact of those kinds of leaks.
By the way, she tried that. She tried that almost always, inevitably, with these leakers, these whistleblowers. They try to go up the chain of command, and then they get slapped down. And then they try to go to traditional media outlets, and they get ignored. And then they end up having to go to WikiLeaks. In the case of Snowden, he went to The Guardian and Glenn Greenwald. So that's a dodge. That's always a dodge. Where they, well, sure, no, it's okay, but you should have went up the chain of command. That's what you should have done, and that's why you violated the law. Wait, but they tried. So they just have to lie about it, the intelligence community, I mean. And look, that wasn't the worst segment in the world. In parts, they portrayed things pretty objectively. But you know what annoys me is that the framing of it at the beginning and in little parts throughout, including at the end there, it's framed as like a, well, who knows? Traitor? Hero? You decide. Here's the story. But no, this is false equivalence 101. This is fake neutrality. This is present both sides. But what about when one side is totally wrong? What about that? What if an American hero was put in jail and tortured? What about that? You know, I guess what I'm annoyed with is that the establishment press doesn't seem to... They seem to lag behind history. So, for example, if there's ever any discussion about Daniel Ellsberg today, he's a hero. He's a hero. That's it. End of conversation. Hero. Now, what did Daniel Ellsberg do? He leaked the Pentagon Papers. The Pentagon Papers, that showed us that the U.S. military was using Agent Orange and napalm and killing innocent villagers in Vietnam and committing war crimes and atrocities left and right. Now, at the time, he was derided as a traitor. Sound familiar? Snowden, Manning, same thing. Same script, different people. So you have Chelsea Manning, hey, I'm releasing all this stuff here. Look at that. We just learned, and they touched on it there. We just learned that the U.S. military was massacring civilians and laughing about it, by the way, and killing little kids, and Reuters journalists go, whoopsies, well, guilty enough. Let's move along here. So you have somebody release that. You have Snowden release the fact that the NSA is spying on everybody and collecting everybody's metadata, and that's wildly in violation of the Fourth Amendment. And what do? This traitor! Traitor! Are you working with the enemy? Maybe you're working with the enemy. Why are you trying to damage your country? I think you're trying to damage your country. No, these are patriots who are trying to make the government act legally. They're saying, hey, what you're doing is unconstitutional and illegal and wrong, and I'm going to blow the whistle on it. But it's always flipped back on them. No, you're the one that broke the law by exposing the crimes of the government. And in the establishment press, they lag behind the times inevitably. So you can't just come out and say, American hero. American hero, let's discuss the facts of what she did, because when you look at the facts in an objective, sober way, you go, oh, that is a hero. But they can't do that. So what do? 50-50, set up the framing. Some say you're a traitor, some say you're a hero. Yeah, all the people who say she's a fucking traitor are either absolute ignorant buffoons, or they're people within the intelligence community who don't like that we're exposing what not only they're guilty of, but what the U.S. military is guilty of and what the government is guilty of doing with our money in our name. Atrocities around the world. And unconstitutional privacy rights violations in the case of what Edward Snowden exposed. So I would like to see... Again, it wasn't the worst segment in the world because some of it portrayed Chelsea in a positive fashion. And the facts show that Chelsea's a very positive person and is a hero. But the framing of it is what got me. And the insistence on dropping little bits here and there about what the intelligence community says. Because that's just like interjecting with, let me tell you what the bad guys say. like, why would you do that? Why? Oh, and by the way, here's what the people, the people we exposed, that they're covering up crimes, they say that it's not good that you expose them covering up crimes. Yeah, well, no shit, but why are you presenting that as if it's like they're totally legitimate? They're not legitimate. They've been exposed as the loathsome scumbags they are. So it's not 50-50. It's not maybe a traitor, maybe a hero. It's a fucking hero. And we all should acknowledge that. So Chelsea, I'm glad that you're out, and I'm glad you have a new beginning for life here. You deserve it more than anybody.